Okay, so let's jump in. We are now in week 2/week 3, technically, of the content for our class, guys. So it's been moving very quickly. And before we talk about tonight's lesson on value-based pricing, how to basically charge a lot for your creative work, I do kind of want to answer a couple of frequently asked questions that I received over the weekend, just about the modules and how to flow with the class and things that need to be filled out. Okay, mostly for discussions. So let me go ahead and go to student view so we can see that. And we should see purple momentarily, or at least pink. There it goes. Okay, so I'm going to close orientation, and then I'll close week 2 there. Okay, so when we look at the last week's modules, we pretty much get a snapshot of what every week's going to look like with regards to the format. So we're gonna have a module which is week by week, and the posts are broken down according to discussions. Okay, so we will always have a discussion post of some sort. There's also the activity, which is basically the assignment. Okay, and then following that we have our videos, which could be both, Tuesday, Thursday, 2 videos. Sometimes it can be more depending on like the content, but we have it broken down into this kind of module. So every week you will always see this format, right? Week 1, week number, whatever it is, the title, designer therapy, and then we'll have a discussion post, an activity page, and videos, which are recordings or recaps of that Tuesday, Thursday of lessons covering that week. Okay. So we have that as your format. That's kind of like what a complete week looks like in a nutshell, give or take, right? Some weeks I might go longer, right, depending on the content. So I might put in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks into one module, right, depending. But it's always going to look like this, okay? So if you have your mobile phone modules, you'll see this format, okay? And just out of curiosity too, how many of you guys have been successful with your cell phones navigating through this class? You can give me a little thumbs up emoji if that's the case. But just curious to know that if the phone or your mobile phones have been working pretty well with that. Okay, beautiful. That's the purpose behind it. We want to be as friendly as possible to, well, basically, we're in a mobile world, so we want to make sure that you can get content at your fingertips. So hopefully you've been able to use it in meaningful ways, whether it's driving to school or to work, listening to some lessons, whatever the case may be, right? But ultimately, I'm glad it's helping. So that's the format, okay? I'm gonna zoom in on discussions because when we do discussions, the question was, Professor, how do we get points for replying in the discussion? And the answer is yes. So when you reply to a discussion post, you click onto discussion, right? That page, open it up. And when you open it up, then you're basically going to see a video or article or blog post, whatever the case, but mostly it's videos, and answer the question by replying below, right? So that's how you get those 10 points, is by making the reply here. And when you do, it'll instantly give you participation points, or I give you participation points on the grading side, okay? So when you do make a reply, then you'll see all of your classmates' replies as well. So that way it doesn't kind of hinder the thinking and the process of like reviewing and reflecting on it, okay? So every discussion post is 10 points. So literally like 2 semesters is almost worth like 2 full project grades, right? So that's like 100 points for 10 weeks, another 100 for the other 10. So a 20-week class, that's 200 points just for answering or replying to discussion questions, right? So this is a great way to make up points, great way to catch up if you're missing an assignment or 2. stay on top of the discussion post, and you will get 2 full project grades out of that, if you look at it from that perspective, just by doing 1 discussion post every week, okay? So little by little, and it will add you up there, okay? So it's a great way to catch up on points if you're ever falling behind on assignments, or if you miss an assignment, do the discussions, right? And if you want your grade to be the highest, then do all the discussions, do all the activities, and you will do very well in the class, okay? So that's just the format there. So the first discussion post, which is on habit, I actually made it due at the end of this week or Thursday, just to give everybody some time to get familiar with it, and reply and do all that thing. So don't reply now, where you'll do that on your own time, like tonight after class, tomorrow, or Thursday before we meet, right? But we will do the discussion post for tonight's class or lesson, okay? So we'll do that, and I'll direct you to that one, which is going to be on week 2. So let's go over to week 2 for just a second, and we'll connect over to the discussion post, and then everyone will reply to the discussion post, okay? So we're going to go to week 2. I'm going to close the week 1 module, not to confuse anybody. Okay, I'm going to click on to week 2, and under week 2, we see what we just said. We have our module, and I'm going to draw that in here. Okay, we're going to see our module. We're going to see the discussion post, and we're going to click onto that discussion post and answer the question after reviewing the video. So 10 points, getting paid to think. And it's a short video there that you can watch. Now, I could play this for you guys right now, and maybe that'll be easier. I'll play it so then that way we're not overlapping audios and things like that. And then everyone as a class will answer for about 5 minutes the discussion question, which is, what are you really getting paid to do as a graphic designer? How can you start charging for your thinking and your strategy, and not just the execution or production of it? Okay, so I'm going to play this video. Is that going to work for everybody? Just push play, and then we'll watch it together as a class. Give me a little thumbs up if you're okay with that, and then everybody will reply, and then we'll see everything posted. We're going to walk through the discussion post and get some easy 10 points out of this. Okay, so I'm going to play that right now, and then we'll go from there. And this is Getting Paid to Think with David C. Baker. And I'm going to expand it. We might see a couple of ads.
Many firms are getting paid for their execution, but they're giving away their thinking. And they're giving away their thinking often in the proposal.
So here's another graphic, and I think you have a clever saying about this one. So it looks to me like there's a house or a room with 2 doors.
So everything that you do is represented in these 2 rooms. Part of what you do is strategy. Part of what you do is execution. At the moment, you can see that both of those doors are open. In other words, a client can come in first and buy your thinking, or they can come in first and buy your doing, your hands, the execution. The first thing you'd want to do as soon as you're able is to close off that door to the execution room. So you're forcing your clients, your new clients, to buy your thinking first, and then if they want, they can go through that connecting door into the execution room. But the execution room, that's the stuff you do with your hands that you couldn't do if you lost the use of your hands. The stuff you're doing in Adobe or whatever, they can't have access to that execution room unless they buy your thinking first. So the first thing you do is you close off that door. The second thing you do is think about the positioning that you do. So you're not usually going to be able to charge a premium for anything that comes from the execution room, because it's almost a commodity now. What you can charge a premium for is what comes out of that strategy room, out of your head, out of your deep thinking, the stuff that you could present to a client with a 5-page Microsoft Word document. It doesn't have to be in color. There doesn't have to be any drawings. It's simply helping them understand how they need to go to market with whatever it is you're helping them sell. So that's the very simple concept that I use to think about this stuff a lot.
It's a great analogy. Jonah, can we pull up that graphic again? So a lot of creative firms, especially the ones that are watching our channel or maybe new to our channel, there's no other room. There's just the execution room, and that's all they're selling. So are there steps that they can take to start building building that out and what does that look like? Because this is going to be a foreign concept for a lot of people. It's a global audience. A lot of people, unfortunately, are kind of stuck at that easily replace commodity thing where they're bidding on projects purely on price and the lowest price wins.
I would say that this will be most difficult for you if you, in a kind but courageous moment, called yourself sort of an order taker, where your client is telling you what you need to do and you find yourself sitting there taking notes and then going and doing it. That is purely in the execution room. But as they begin to trust you, they may ask for your input on the deeper problems. They may call you in earlier before the execution decisions have been made. And you'll see opportunities where you can inject yourself in a conversation and say, okay, I understand what you want me to do here. I think there might be a better way to do it. So you're just taking the directions before any execution starts and you're redirecting it somewhere else and saying, and this is strategies happening here. You're saying, let's think about some other way to execute this. There's another really important point that might help people, and that's that many firms are getting paid for their execution, but they're giving away their thinking. And they're giving away their thinking often in the proposals, especially if they write long proposals. And so what I'm doing is suggesting that instead of that, you work with your clients and say, listen, until you engage me, I can't really start to solve this challenge you have. But what I can do is I can explain to you the process I'll use to solve this problem. And I can show you how I've done this in many other times. It's led to great results. And then, so what you're doing essentially is you're pulling all that strategy from the proposal that you were giving away, and you're saying, listen, the first step in the process is to figure out how we need to solve this problem. And then if you want, I can solve the problem too. That's the execution.
You're separating those two things out. I have a friend, he's a rather stubborn guy, he's super creative, runs a small firm, and he's resisted this idea of selling strategy in the thinking part. He bakes it into his pricing. He justifies to himself that I am getting paid for this. And here's how I know this. I do workshops and I'll ask the room usually, how many of you guys here charge for your thinking? And I'm always surprised when a bunch of hands go up, like, how do you do that? Is there a separate line item? Is this delineated in a very clear way? And then almost all their hands go down and it's just, they think they're selling their thinking, but it's all baked within execution. So is it important to separate those things?
It is absolutely critical, and it's such a great question, because it's not only important to separate them, it's important that the pricing looks different. So the thinking needs to be to the nearest $1,000 and the execution needs to be broken out to the nearest $10.
Right.
So maybe it's $1,000 for thinking and then it's $2,380 for the execution. It just needs to look very different. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's natural though for us to fall into this trap because none of us got much education on the thinking, on the strategy from school. It was all around the execution side. The rest of it we've just simply picked up because of being smart humans.
I would like to go a little deeper with you on the how to charge for the thinking part. Let's just say I'm really excited right now. This is all hitting me in the face and this is awesome and amazing. How do we charge for thinking? And you mentioned this already, but I just want to go deeper. Like, what does thinking look like? Because the client's going to ask, like, so what am I paying you for?
Yeah, so the thinking, now this might be difficult because the challenge comes when you try to apply this with an existing client, where you try to convert an existing client who has you in the execution box and you try to drag them over to the strategy box and, hey, say you realize that I'm much better than this, right? That doesn't often work. So what you want to do instead is try this with new clients, and you would want to have a package on your website. It's so much easier to point to something on your website and not invent something on the fly. So explain what your service offerings are and separate them very specifically on your website. And it may take a year or 2 years for you to make that transition. It's okay. You just, every time you get an opportunity to try it with a new client, then just here's another way to do it. Just ask them brilliant questions that indicate that you are thinking about this from a strategic standpoint. Don't ask them how many copies of something they need or how many words it is, or just ask them the bigger, deeper questions about their audience and what you're trying to convince that audience of, and the price points and the competition. Ask all that stuff is strategy, and people are better at it than they think. They're just kind of not used to doing it.
Right. So you're asking a whole different set of questions that starts to indicate that you're thinking in a very different way. This is wonderful because for a lot of you guys who are actually practicing this and report back to me what's happened is the relationship is transformed. You are seen and held in higher regard with your client. You're asking the bigger questions, the questions that ultimately can lead them to having or making meaningful impact on their business, growing awareness, conversions, or something like that. And you're not just asking like, what logos do you like, what colors, or the things that designers tend to obsess over.
Right, exactly right. Nobody cares too much about the font except you, and you need to care about it. That's something that's important to you. Clients notice that stuff when it's bad. They don't usually notice it when it's good. And here's another point. It's not just the strategy, it's the relationship. It's how you wrap this work you're doing in great project management and great account management. Clients notice deficiencies in those areas long before they notice deficiencies in the quality of the work. The quality of the work that you're doing is already better than it has to be. You're doing it to please yourself and to please your peers, and it's fantastic work. It's being honest about how good the work is you want to do. But the truth, the same ability to judge things that you do.
Okay, it's fantastic.
But it's absolute. All right. So I will definitely make a lot of recommendations on that channel. I don't know if you know that, but The Future is a really awesome channel. And it is based on the business of design and design of business. And I know Chris, we kind of roam in the same circles, but I'll mention that briefly in a little while. Okay, so hopefully you got to listen to that clearly. Now let's reply. Let's answer the question. Here's our warm up for this evening, guys. And just answer this question in the reply below. What are you really getting paid to do as a designer? Right? How can you start charging for your thinking and strategy and not just the execution? What are some ways, based on what's on the video or just on your own personal experiences? Maybe you've done this before, but what are some ways that you can do this so that you can actually charge for your thinking and not so much on your production? How can we do more of the higher value stuff, thinking, and be valued for that? Okay, go ahead and click on to reply below. Take a few moments. I'll give you like about 5 minutes to kind of reply. Okay, maybe give or take. And then once you're complete, then go ahead and just mention in the chat that you're finished, and then we'll kind of move forward from there. So take about 5 minutes to kind of reflect on the video and answer that question, okay? Okay, almost there. Thanks, Stacy. I'm just going through and entering points here in real time. So as soon as you post, then I'll just enter it. I'll take a couple more minutes. But you can go ahead and read the other replies after you post, so you can get some understanding and some perspective. Okay, thanks, James. Appreciate it. I'll go ahead and make some points there. And anyone still typing, you can give me a little quick thumbs up emoji. Just want to make sure that I give you guys enough time to kind of run through it. Okay, great. Continue on, guys, and then we'll get everybody in there. All right, these so far responses are looking good, guys. So far, so good. Take a couple of last looks there. The remaining replies, you can even give a little thumbs up to any of the replies too, if you wish. Okay, I think we are almost there. So anyone still typing out there? You can give me a little thumbs up. Just want to make sure. I'm gonna give you guys enough time. Okay. And if you're almost finished, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji just to make sure. Oh, that's shifted up there. We didn't want that. Okay, all right. Let's give it about another minute. And if you're still typing, don't worry. We still have a little bit of the lecture to go this evening, guys, and then we will talk a little bit further. So, but that's kind of the breakdown, okay? And then once we do warm-ups, all right, or discussion questions, as I call them, we score them out, give you some points. And again, it's like almost like 2 full letter grades, but it's a great way to kind of get thinking, to start thinking about the topic, the subject, begin a discussion, and see what everyone is saying and what they're thinking and what their reactions are to the video, okay? Which everyone pretty much agrees with, right? Like we should have value and charge for the work that we do, okay? Now, a little FYI for this evening, okay? I'm gonna give you guys a little warning in advance. This will be a very interactive class, meaning tonight we will be going into breakout rooms, and ultimately what we're going to be working on today is basically knowing how to charge for your creative work. We're going to talk about how to identify and price a client, and basically how to negotiate a fee or do value-based pricing. Okay, so one student tonight is gonna basically demo it with me. So you're gonna go up against me to kind of negotiate pricing. So either a volunteer, we can have someone volunteer for it, or we can pick you out randomly. But somebody is going to negotiate with me as a demonstration. And then at the end, you guys are going to go into breakout rooms, and you're going to sort of try to at least apply some negotiation tactics amongst each other in your breakout rooms. So you will be going on camera for at least 2 to 5 minutes, roughly, depending on how far you negotiate. And you will be engaging and talking. Okay, so if you're not where you need to be, or you're not you're in a highly distracting environment, let's talk, because we will be putting you guys into breakout rooms shortly in order to go through this process. Okay, so we will be negotiating, and we're going to get really interactive this evening. Okay, so just to forewarn you guys, okay, we will be interacting this evening. Okay, so let's just jump in and let's just ask the question. Okay, how much should you charge for your work? Okay, legit question. Okay, I want to ask you guys that question. If it came to your graphic design work, how much should you charge? Like, what's a reasonable amount of money? Okay, let's type it in the chat. Let's actually like extend the conversation. We know strategy is good, but I'm curious to know, how much is your your talent worth? How much is your effort worth? Share with me. Okay, drop some numbers, drop some prices, maybe some hourlies. Maybe you're not sure, that's fine. Okay, but how much should you charge for your work? Okay, what is that? What is that word? Go ahead and type it in the chat. Okay. Okay. Now, maybe more specific, James. Are you talking about 4 to 10K, 4 to 10,000, 4 to $10 an hour? I hope not. If you want to specify in the chat there. Good question, Philip. Well, it's not a copy. When you're doing graphic design work, you're doing original work, right? So it would be for the original design. Okay, but how much? Give me a number. What's it worth? What is your time worth? Okay. All right, Nydia, that's cool. It depends on complexity and time. Okay. All right, let's, Nydia, for you, let's just say a logo. How much would you charge a client for a logo? Let's say. Okay. All right, $30 an hour, $70. Okay. $7. 7? James? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure we're not having a typo. 1,000. 50. Okay, great. Isn't it interesting that everybody has some crazy ranges of numbers here, right? 3 hours on it would be $80. Okay. I find it interesting that there is no standard that we know of when it comes to this stuff, right? And if you wonder why graphic designers probably don't make as much, or maybe they're having a hard time with their finances, is probably because they don't talk about this topic, right? All right, and I for one know that a lot of schools nowadays are talking more about the money and the finances, okay? And coming from Cal State, and talking to people even at the top charging design schools, they talk about the finances, and they go through the numbers and they go through this process. And probably some of the best negotiators came from some of those top schools that I've played with. They stood their ground on their prices and their numbers. So that's really interesting that the ranges are far and wide. But I'm going to change your perspective, or my hope is I'm going to persuade you guys on why we should go a little bit higher. And if by a little, I mean a lot higher, okay? So, okay, you have to take into account not only which time you create, but also for the value of your experience overall to get the points to merit. Say like 100% of someone who look for a brand, can't imagine how much they would be making off the other hand. Okay, great. These are so great perspectives, great breakdowns, right? Okay. My hope is that we can take your numbers and go higher on the numbers, okay? And here's some reasoning why behind that, okay? All right, so we talked about the hierarchy, right? Remember we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? If we were to just put some prices on it, and for the folks that are paying rent or mortgages, you guys know that according to the hierarchy of needs, most of this stuff costs money, right? If we just look at shelter, which is the most basic physiological needs, the rent in California just to have shelter over your head is pretty high, wouldn't you say? Right? So if we're noticing that having the physiological need is high priced, it's no wonder why some folks are having problems with their finances, because we're already starting with the most basic need, right? Companies or these things have the highest value because the body needs to eat, we need shelter, and to some businesses, that is the best business, right? When I was at Disney, I was there during 2008, which was during like the housing crisis, where actually I got to witness the before, during, and after of the housing crisis. I was shocked. Out of all the businesses that did very well, all the businesses sunk across the board, right? Except for one. Okay, anyone want to take a wild guess which business did not sink? out of all the businesses, which one still kept making money? And everyone's like wondering, like, well, I wonder, could it be toys? Not toys. I'll say that. Yeah, the groceries, the food. The Disney branded food was the only line of business that made money during the housing crisis, right? So cheese, chicken nuggets were the money makers. Meanwhile, parks, everything started crashing, right? Which was fascinating to me, but it reinforced an idea that was everyone's got to eat, everyone needs a place to stay, no one's going to stop paying for those things even during a recession or a pandemic, right? We all need shelter, we all need food and clothing, right? So these businesses were always there. Okay, so I just established that the first thing we need is pretty high price in America, right? These basic things are pretty high price no matter what. Okay, cool. All right, so going back to this, right? Because I can go up the list and you guys know that these things continue to cost money, right? So we should have, just by looking at bar number one, just understand that like we should charge more for your work, right? But no one knows how much they should charge, right? And before I get to the numbers, we really got to address the personal questions, okay? Because money is about value and value is about how you see yourself. And so I asked the question, this is a platonic question, but just ask yourself this question, okay? Are you a people pleaser or a peacemaker? Okay? And I'll define that for you, okay? Are you a peacemaker, okay? Or a people pleaser, peacemaker, okay? What's the difference, okay? People pleasers are people that typically say yes to every request, typically, not all the time, okay, on average. They sort of quietly want to be liked by everyone, okay? They tend to avoid conflicts. They don't want problems with anybody. And they're typically very compromising of their own values, right? So they will probably compromise if something is uncomfortable to them. Versus the peacemaker, who are typically, not all of them, but typically tell it like it is. They tell harsh realities despite the conflicts. They're focused on others and not so worried about themselves. And they build relationships and mediate conflicts, right? So the peacemakers are the ones that step in and try to fix or get things situated, right? Despite what anyone says, thinks, or feels. Like, we have to fix this, it doesn't matter, we got to get this going, right? Whereas people pleasers are a little bit different, right? They're a little bit opposite to that. They say that people pleasers tend to have a compromising identity, which leads to mental health issues like resentment, victimization, addictions to dopamine, right? Going on social media, trying to be liked by everybody. Whereas peacemakers are often driven by a calling, right? They understand their own story, why they do what they do. And they don't tolerate being victimized or being taken advantage of by anybody. They always take a stand, okay? And I would probably say that for a while, I was the person on the left, the people pleaser, right? I didn't ask for more money because I wanted the customer to like me, like my work, and give me the work, right? When I should have been the peacemaker, which was asking for more money because I'm worth it and it's the right thing to do. Okay, very different set of circumstances, right? So tonight, I want you guys to just entertain the possibility that you are worth it and that the right thing for you to do is to charge much more than what you just told me a few seconds ago, okay? Because you're worth it. You guys are worth it, okay? You live in California, you are investing time, energy, and finance, resources, right, to learning this skill. And you're walking away thinking that you want to charge $2, $4, $5, $25 an hour for something that took 20 or more weeks or even years to develop. That is not how you should see that, guys. You're worth it, so you need to do the right thing and you need to charge a lot more for your services, okay? I always like just cruising Instagram, okay? And it's interesting because, they always have all these cool little memes that people love to repost, right? Or images and little quotes and things like that, and they're helpful. I think it's great to know more than one way to say no, right? Sometimes it's nice to basically be like, hey, you know what? Let me think about that, or maybe another time, or if you're a little bit more comical, yeah, no thanks, I'm good, or I'm afraid I can't, whatever the case may be, finding a creative way to say no or just buy yourself time from saying yes is very, very helpful, okay, for those people that are more the people pleasers, right? So you want people to like you for who you are, okay? And so the question always comes is like, okay, professor, well then how do I convince myself that I'm worth something? Like, how do I tell myself this and sort of go through the motions of just persuading my subconscious that I can do this, right? Or I'm valuable. And I would say, look at the definition of value, right? First, value is the usefulness, the importance, or the worth of something, and having a high opinion of, right? So if you have a high opinion of yourself, right? Not conceited, but just, you're confident in your abilities and you know that you're going places and you're doing stuff and you're taking this class, that's great. You know you're on track to do something better. And it's useful. This is very useful information to have, right? We live in a visually focused world. Everything is on a mobile device. Everything is visual. There's designers that are needed in everything related to technology and media because you need a screen and someone needs to design that screen in some way, shape, or form, right? So there is a demand for this field, right? And it's constantly changing, and there's always new opportunities in interesting and subtle ways, right? But it's always graphic. It's always through the eyes, right? That we sense this stuff. So know that this is a growing field, okay? And that's valuable and that's useful. And that should be one reason out of many that you should see yourself highly. So, I give you a little rundown of how you should see yourself. Your skill, your trade is very much needed. But how do I convince others to have an importance of my work? Like, how do I convince the other person to do it? Which is really at the heart of it, right? And I think the first place to really start is to genuinely want to serve people, okay? People know fake, people see fake. So you gotta walk in being genuine, authentic, they say, right? That you wanna help them out, okay? Don't do work that you don't like to do. Like who you're working with, like your customer, okay? So I actually start with liking the customer that talks to me, straight out, okay? If you like your customer, then this is someone that you can have dinner, lunch, a drink, a beer, coffee with, okay? Like this is probably one of the best indicators. If you meet someone and you're like, just say to yourself, yeah, this is someone I could see myself going to lunch with and just talking and just having like a conversation about the work that we're doing. I can see myself going out to dinner with this person, not a date, okay? But like just having a conversation, a good conversation where you feel comfortable and safe and you feel like you can share your thoughts and your ideas. And it's a meaningful exchange of ideas, right? Okay. If you don't meet that first level or of engagement, don't do the job, like right off the bat. Okay. Don't get me wrong. If you need the money and you got to pay rent tomorrow, then take the job, right? And get through and make your bills. But most of the time today, I would say that whether I'm a student or whether I'm, an adult, 20 years in this field, at the end of the day, the best interactions were people that I can collaborate with and I can actually have a meaningful exchange of ideas with. Does that make sense? So if you could see yourself having lunch with this person, having dinner with this person, having a drink with this person, having a beer with this person, whatever is your way of connecting, then that's the way you should do it, okay? That is the best way. Okay. I think the ladies probably have a better radar than the guys, right? Guys tend to be like, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, right? But gentlemen, but even if you're interacting with another male client, if they're not open to listen to you, or they're just giving you orders, guys, leave the client. Okay. Because you want to be giving meaningful input. You do not want somebody to give you orders, okay? And if you're a person of color, I think this is a little bit more difficult because typically when you're dealing with, different cultures, different races. There's even stereotypes that come into play with that, right? I would know firsthand, right? Hey, you're Miguel, right? So you're like my gardener Juan that could do this for no fool. I am not that guy. I am not going to do this job for low, and like straight out, like you have to like quash that. And I know it's all joking, but it's a reality. Like, statistically, there's research that says that names do create inequality, straight out. And so having a surname of any type of Hispanic or any type of, foreign origin does come with its own set of skills. And I know this because I'm doing an experiment right now in my LinkedIn profile where I changed my name. I said to myself, I'm going to change my first name from Miguel to Michael. And you guess what happens? Okay? Guess what's happening? I'm getting more job offers. Okay? I got people looking at me from Apple, right? I don't know anyone from Apple. I got people from all walks of life, from just looking me up, right? And offering me more. So I did see an uptick versus Miguel, right? Which really pisses me off, but at the same time, it's the reality. Like, I wanted to test the research, and it is a legit thing, right? And so don't get me wrong, I'll reverse it, right? But this is a reality, guys. Like, people are going to come in with certain preconceived ideas, and I'm doing this experiment, and it's proving to be true, right? And and don't get me wrong, like, well, maybe he did something different. It's like, no, I didn't do anything different. And my resume, on LinkedIn basically says like how much money I've made these companies, right? Like, I actually indicate the return on investment, and I put those numbers in, right? And not much traffic. As soon as I changed my first name, I was like, oh my God, I didn't change anything. The numbers are still high. I've generated millions for other companies compared to what it is now. It's unbelievable. So this is the reality, right? So be aware that, that people's first perceptions do carry with it some inequalities. And so right off the bat, you should do that. And in that being said, I don't want to turn this into an inequality discussion, but I will say that you could perceive yourself the way others perceive you, and actually be accepting the inequality without even realizing it. So you actually bought into the lie because you grew up in the lie. Does that make sense? So there's a little bit of that happening even with me, where it's like, man, I bought into this, right? I actually thought I was less than. And then I had to go and actually go to a class at Art Center where a South African man who left South Africa during during apartheid, right? He was discriminated against, right? Because, and he's a white man. This is a white man who was discriminated against because of his class status. And he left South Africa to America because by middle school, if you didn't show you were intelligent enough by middle school, then you were on track to do a trade and do a sort of blue collar job. And he said, I'm not having that. And so I'm leaving, I'm going to America. And today he has a master's in tax law, successful businessman, teaches other designers and artists how to be entrepreneurs, allowed me to sneak into his class for free so I can take that information, run with it in my life, and bring it to you guys eventually in my life, right? And so this is not so much a black, white thing, brown, or whatever. This could be a class thing in different countries. And I got to see firsthand with a white South African through a different class and a different set of, middle class or lower class, got to experience as well. So interesting, right? But at the end of the day, he taught me this very thing that you guys are learning, which is that you have to see yourself for higher and you have to charge higher, right? And he went deeper into it. He actually does a much better job at this than I do, I would say, but it's just as effective. So at the end of the day, what do we do about this? How do we do this? Communication is key, right? How you talk to yourself, how you say it, what you say to others is key. So be a doctor. Talk like a doctor if you're negotiating. Be like, and if you're a pharmacist or your family's a pharmacist, okay, no, I'm not trying to, state pharmacists are not as important as doctors. They make good wages, but pharmacists do something very different than what doctors do. Okay, and if I had to break it down, right, doctors are like problem solvers, right? The pharmacist takes what the doctor finds and does the prescription. Designers have become kind of like pharmacists today, doers, where they do the design and the client is like the doctor. When in reality, they're really the patient and they're sick and they don't know what they're talking about. But yet when we talk to a client, we say, what do you want? What do you need? And then we just copy something that they saw somewhere else and charge them $20, right? No. We have to approach it like doctors. We need to ask questions. We need to ask the client to come into our process and share with them and ask them things that most people do or ask in that, okay? And what does that really look like, okay? Well, doctors, psychologists, lawyers, if you think about these are high-paying trades, right? High-paying jobs. And these people are thinkers, right? They do things like ask questions about how you're feeling, what you're going through, what are your pain points, right? What is the issue? Who are you divorcing? Why are you divorcing this poor person, right? And they focus on understanding causes, okay? They focus on outcomes. They want to work with you on getting to the outcome, but they focus on what the symptoms are, the cause, the root of the issue. And they also charge you a lot of money, or your insurance companies for a lot of money for those services, right? And anyone who's ever dealt with a lawyer knows that attorneys are not cheap because they're thinking about things through the lens of a law, through laws that get to where your outcome would be, right? So they're thinkers. And that's how you should see yourself, right? You are problem solving in the same capacity as doctors, psychologists, and lawyers. And you're solving these people's big problems, like how to improve their brand, their image to their customers, to an audience, and generate new customers, right? That's worth something. That's worth a lot, right? Whether you're a small business, a mid-size, or large corporation, it's all the same. I've worked in all areas. The customer is where you target, and creating value is key. And so we want to be the doctors, not so much the doers. So what do doers? What are makers? What do pharmacists do, right? And dare I say, even designers today. They do things like take the orders from the client, do the tasks that they want, care about quick results, getting to the result as fast as possible. They would charge by the hour for the task. They charge very low for the task. They focus on what they don't have. I don't have this and that, so I need you to do this. I don't have time, so I need you to do this fast. This is not the world you want to live in, guys. If you're feeling any of these things now, we want to get out of that and we want to transition into being the thinker, okay? In other words, hourly pay is stupid and nuts. Hourly pay is nuts, okay? And people always go, what? What are you talking about? Yes, hourly pay sucks, okay? Here's why, okay? And I know some people have their ideas and their thoughts, okay? But just hear me out for just a quick second, okay? Because I know I can already sense some pushback, okay? It's a race to zero, right? Think about it. If you're getting paid by the hour, people want to know how many hours it's going to take because they're already calculating the time, right? So they're racing to zero. They want you to basically save them $1, right? They micromanage. So every time you take longer, they're just calculating tasks. So they're on you saying, when is it done? When is it ready? Are you charging me or not for this time, right? They want to finish quickly so they can save money because you put a time on the hour or a charge on the hour, and they rather not collaborate. They just say, I need to get it done. So when you're rushing, when there's a sense of urgency, right? Then it's all about the cost and it's all about saving money. And everything in America tends to be about that, don't you think? Right? Sign up now to save 20%. Okay, and anyone the first 300 people that sign up in the next 20 minutes is going to get this awesome thing for $20, right? It's all about urgency. That's a sales tactic, right? So it's a race to zero at the end of the day. And so you don't want to be that. You don't want to end up in that world, right? You want to get out of that as best as possible. And we're going to do a little cost calculation, and we're going to play with this, okay? We're just going to do a simulation here. I'm going to give you a link in the chat called How Much Should I Charge? Okay, I know I asked you, but we're going to actually go deep into the system here, okay? There's the link in the chat. And we'll do this together. okay? And we'll play with some numbers. But this is a great thing to kind of test out, and you can even come back to this every now and again if you want to see how much you should charge for a project, okay? It's from an independent designer called The New School, but it's a great little engagement tool, okay? So let's go here. Here's a scenario. Potential client wants a proposal for a design project. Awesome, 5 questions and know how much to charge, okay? Answer 5 questions and know how much to charge to make this project. Let's go, okay. Let's go with, what's the project? Do we want app design, web design, brand design, or print design? Brand design is a logo. So that's typically what you normally get in this field when you're doing Illustrator. Illustrator does it's a program specializing in logos. Not only that, but posters too, but mostly logos we use in this program. So that's called a brand design. I'm gonna click brand design here. So I'm gonna do a logo, okay? Who's the client? Is it a private client, small business, a large corporation? What's the difference? Well, private client is paying for the project from his or her personal money. Small businesses is already making some money or funded, and a large corporation with lots of employees that's making a lot of money. So I would say let's go with the private client, right? Because most of the time when you're starting out, it's always a friend, a relative, right? Friend of a friend, relative of a friend, that they're always asking for a hookup or a project. So we'll say private, paying out of their own cash, okay? Now, what is your hourly rate, okay, that you want to charge? Now, I'm going to go down the list here, and we'll just go, let's see, we'll go with Arai. So Arai says 23 bucks an hour, okay? And she wants to charge $23 an hour. Okay, it's not minimum wage. That's pretty good, right? 25 bucks an hour, right? If I'm, relatively starting out. So you think, but okay. And let's just say how many hours is this going to take? So what's a good number of hours for this project, do you think? How much time do we need to create a logo? Is it 2 hours? And you could type it in the chat. 3 hours, 4 hours? Is it an entire week? Is it 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week? Okay, so okay, Arai, so you put in the number, you said 9.5 hours. Okay, so I'm gonna punch in, let's just say 9 hours here, okay? Ready, yeah, let's go 10. Okay, so you say about 10 hours, 9.5 hours, I'll give you 30 minutes for lunch. Okay, let's have them pay for your lunch, okay? And let's go next, okay? So is this project interesting? Boring? Is the project interesting? Is it boring? Is it meh? Is it an awesome project, or is it your dream project? Meh, okay, Alex says meh. Okay, meh. Okay, after the project, will you hate yourself a little? Nothing will change? Will it look good on your portfolio, or will your life possibly change? What do you think it would be? Will your life change? Look good for your portfolio. Okay, great. That's been good. That's optimistic, right? All right. According to this, you should charge $414 for this project. Okay, why? Well, let's talk about that. But everyone's like kind of looking at me a little bit shocked, right? Like $400, really? Yeah, $400. Okay, and let's just kind of talk about that a little bit, and let's just kind of break that down so we can get a little bit of a closer look. Okay, so why is that? Okay, well, the number on here is a little bit bigger, so it's about 540 depending here and there. Okay, but it really comes down to 2 things. Okay, it's your break-even point and your negotiation range, basically above your base rate. So it's basically your take home versus your expenses, okay? So your break even is basically $23 an hour times 10 hours. Does that make sense? That's 230 bucks. Okay, cool. Is that how much I'm supposed to take away? No. You still need to pay for your electricity that powered your computer, a fraction of the rent that you used to do that space, right? You got to pay for the gas to meet for them. You got to pay for all these things that went into just getting the meeting going, working on the project, and then pay for the internet bill that sent the work to the client and the Wi-Fi and the cell phones. You need to think about all your other expenses that you have on your regular life on top of what you charge. So you got to be charging more on top of that. Does that make sense? So that's your take home. That's your profit. Okay. They call it your margin, right? You gotta, this is like basic business 101, right? What are you paying to get just the stuff out and done? And how much are you going to profit on top of that? And the problem is that most designers don't talk about the profit and don't talk about their break evens, right? So that's just the first part, okay? So it's about $400. But the question always arises, hey, professor, but didn't you just say not to charge hourly? I mean, you're just telling me to charge $414. Like, didn't you just say not to do that? To which my answer is, yeah, you're right. We don't do that, right? But we do something else, right? We become the doctor to the disease of losing money, okay? So you actually flip the script and you see yourself as that, like, believe it or not. So designers are really doctors, and you're basically helping them not lose money, okay? You're helping them create money, and by doing so, that helps them not lose money. So you're really stepping in and helping them not lose money, okay? Whether you see it as I'm helping them create value or I'm helping them not lose money, take a position, right? Because you have to see yourself as one or the other. I'm the answer to your problem, right? And it's not being conceited, right? You're basically saying, like, what is the need to which I am the answer to, right? And so that's something you got to walk away with. So doctors look at the symptoms, they find the cause, right? What's the problem? I'm losing money. Okay, let me ask you some questions so I can get to the cause. And then I have a prescription on how to do that and get paid, okay? It's very similar, okay? Here's the 4 steps, okay? It's called value-based pricing, okay? And pretty much here it is in a nutshell, okay? 4 steps, okay? Number 1, okay? You calculate your client. How much is the client worth, okay? How much money are they generating? There's actually some ways that you can sort of guesstimate how much a client is generating financially based on how much they're spending visually. Does that make sense? So whether they have employees, you can calculate real quick how much they're spending per month, right? Because employees need to get paid per month. If they have a business, then you can calculate how much rent they're paying, okay? Based on their location. So you do become a little bit of a researcher. So you find out how much they have, right? Sometimes it could be their car. Okay, I'm not gonna do that, but it's more about the businesses and how they operate. Second thing, talk like a doctor. Okay, so once you calculate, you see what they're worth, then you start asking questions to get to the root cause. Sell by closing. That's number 3. Close the deal, half now, half later, and then talk about your process. And so let's just break this down. Okay, all right. So the first part is calculating their worth, how much money they have, okay? Now, before I show you the slide of a coffee shop, we're gonna actually kind of evaluate a coffee shop, but let's just talk about the 4 types of buyers, okay? Because every client, all of us fall into these 4 areas, okay? So you're about to embark on this project, right? Or you're a student and someone comes up to you and they ask you about a project they're interested in doing. Immediately, before you price them out, you should ask yourself, oh, okay, how much are they worth and what kind of buyer are they, okay? And there's 4 types, okay? Number 1, the first type of buyer that we see here is what you would call the price buyer, okay? The price buyer. Now, the price buyer is basically the person that wants it cheaper, and they always try to pull the friend card on you, okay? Hey, okay, it's $400. Oh man, I could get it cheaper from, my buddy James. He charged me $7 for that. Or, or my buddy Arari, she can do it for $23 an hour. That's $200 right there for a week. Are we buddies? Aren't we cool? Are we friends? Aren't you my son? Aren't you my daughter? Yeah, mom, yeah, dad, it's $400. Like you still charge them, I don't want to create conflict, but you gotta set the example, right? Mom and dad didn't raise a fool, so this is worth money. So pricers are basically the type of people that will always try to find the cheapest price, and they try to pull the whole family card or relationship card. Again, nothing wrong with them. That's just how they are and how they operate. Okay. Now I ask you guys a question. Okay, how many of you guys, thumbs up emoji, would consider yourself to be price buyers? Okay, no shame in your game. You can give me a thumbs up. I'm a price buyer. Try to save $1. These are difficult times. These are hard times. I want to save. That is totally fine. Okay. Negotiation is all about finding the win-win for both parties. Okay. So we have some honest souls. Thank you guys. That's great. All right. And if you're thinking about it, that's probably you. Okay. All right. That's cool. Okay. Then we have the know-it-all buyer. Okay. This is the buyer that basically is the wannabe designer. They want to do what you do. They know how long it takes actually. And they say, but Arari, it's 9.5 hours. Come on. That's only going to be, really like an hour pushing this on Illustrator and, tracing this here and drawing that there. I mean, it's really like maybe 4 hours if you think about it. And the other 4, you're just kind of asking your friends to critique it, right? And again, they want to do what you do. Okay. But they didn't put the time or the effort, and that's okay. They like what you do, but they don't have your skill set or your techniques, and they know it all. You still charge them for it. Okay. So based off of that, you guys are not wannabes. You're actually designers. You're in the class. So everyone here is actually possibly the wannabes about to be converted into the actuals, right? And if you are, you guys will truly know how long it'll take, and you'll be able to charge for that. Okay. All right. Then we have the indecisive buyer. Okay. And indecisive buyers are let me know. They say things like, let me know, let me think about it. I don't know. Let me ask around. I'll be back. Right. They always say things like that, right? Let me think about it, or let me just search around a bit more. Okay. And they're indecisive. Okay. I would kind of fall under that category, I would say, right? Let me think about it. I'm not sure. I need to continue my research, right? I was really just kind of getting more clarification, seeing if there's something I missed. But most of the time it's indecisive, okay? And it's pretty straightforward what that is, okay? And if you're an indecisive buyer, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji. You could be an indecisive buyer possibly too. You always tend to think about things a little bit, and that's okay. That is totally fine to be indecisive, because you just need to have a little bit more time to research things, okay? It just means you need more information. Then there's the value buyer, okay? And I love the value buyer, okay? And the value buyer is someone that we want in our lives, okay? If you can find a way to find a value buyer, then good for you. You have figured out the secret to this whole puzzle. And value buyers buy with emotion, right? They use logic to justify the charge, right? So they say things like, I need this right away. Charge me anything, just do it, right? Like I have a situation, I'm really pressed for time. I don't want this to look bad. This really has to be as good as it can possibly get. Failure is not an option, right? I have high expectations. And so they say things to that degree. Okay, now value buyers, if you know how to set yourself up and break down your process and be able to explain to them certain things, then value buyers are awesome, because they will pay anything and any range. So you want a value buyer in your life, okay? And I don't know if you are a value buyer, but if you're a value buyer, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji, okay? So I would say I tend to be a value buyer when it comes to education and resources and just, places to stay, right? I value my rest and my sleep, and I want to spend top dollar for living arrangements, because I've lived in pretty poor areas. And so I never want to do that. So I've had bad educational experiences, so I don't want my son ever going through that. So I'm actually more of a value buyer when it comes to, living and education and vacations now also, because I don't want to go anywhere cheap, because I want the place to be safe and enjoyable, right? So I'm a more value buyer in that area. So these are the 4 types of buyers. Okay. Now let's set up a little scenario, okay? Because I really want to give you guys a little bit of a break, and then we're going to jump into the actual training and things like that. Okay, but let's just have a little scenario here. Okay, let's say a coffee shop owner comes to you. Okay, his name is Victor. He has a coffee shop here in the city of Whittier. Okay, and his business is already experiencing a decline in sales because the new Starbucks has opened around the corner a few blocks away, okay, or the next block over. Now, obviously, you know, he can do a lot of different things, but the first thing he wants to do is sort of rebrand and try to upgrade his design. Maybe he's working with a bad logo. Maybe Victor thinks he didn't need a logo anymore because he was just selling coffee, so all he needed was just a little button sign that looked ugly. Maybe he just, you know, didn't have enough time to do a logo and didn't have enough connections like he has today. Either way, he needs a logo because now Starbucks was very, very brand focused, is now stepping into his territory. Now he wants to do the same, right? He wants to compete. So calls you and says, hey, I need an ad. Let's say we do an ad for Instagram. So tell me how much this will be, right? Now, let's just say that picture is the exact location of Victor's coffee shop, okay? And you walk in to this place, this amazing place, right? Looks huge, beautiful food, baked, things of that sort, right? You can kind of see some of the pricing on the wall there, right? On the left. So when you go into this situation, the first thing I do is I calculate how much that property is worth to Victor. Does that make sense? So I look at how much he's spending according to location, okay? So my brain turns into a calculator. I go, ooh, he's in a location. Let's find out. How much does it cost to rent a coffee shop in Whittier on average, okay? I'm thinking that in my brain. I'm thinking to myself, how much do people who have brick and mortar businesses or actual physical locations of coffee shops, how much do they make per month? Maybe when Victor goes and does a cup of coffee, I open up my phone and I Google that very question. I ask, how much do coffee shop owners make in brick and mortar? And I find this answer while he goes to get that coffee. I see small but steady coffee shop business can generate $5,000 to $20,000 in income a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. You will also want to figure your personal income and taxes. So while Victor's getting a cup of coffee, I go, this guy is worth at least $10,000. Okay, just by looking and Googling in 2 seconds the location, okay? Then I say to myself, ooh, I see the wall. And if you notice, there's some prices on the wall, right? I see things like 16, 10. So you're literally playing CSI graphic designer edition, where you're basically walking in, right? And you're saying, how much is this dude worth? And I'm going through the process, okay? I'm looking at the expenses that this person is outpouring, and I'm calculating in my head, $10 cups of coffee, this and this and that. So if I had to put this in a formula, this is how I would basically break this stuff down, okay? I'm guesstimating that Victor is probably making somewhere at least $2,000 or more a month, okay? That's just putting it conservatively, okay? $2,000 a month, right? Let's say that Victor has one employee, okay? And the minimum wage in California is it $15 now, right? I think it was at 12 at one point, right? So still 12, let's say it's $12, give or take. 14, okay, thank you, Kat. So about $14, okay. Okay, now most coffee shops are open from opening till closing, right? 9 to 5, let's say, maybe 5 to 4, 3, depending, maybe longer, right? But let's just say that your shift, that Victor is paying an employee, let's say a high school student or a college student, high school part-time, full-time student maybe, $12 an hour, working 40 hours a week, okay? That calculates to about $500 a week, which in 4 weeks, which is a month, right? $500 a week in a month is about $2,000 for that employee, okay? And let's just say Victor's charging $5 a cup of coffee, right? And he's minimum they're selling about 100 cups of coffee average on a conservative basis. If Victor has an amazing spot at half the price, right? And maybe it's smaller than the average, he is walking away at least somewhere along the lines of $6,000 to $8,000 a month of take-home expenses, probably more, because that's what he's paying out of his own pocket, and possibly making more on top. Is this making sense, guys? Right? So it's looking like, and I'm doing this all in my head based on just looking at the store, okay? Because you can Google location. We know what the minimum wage is, right? And we could just calculate how many workers, calculate minimum wage, calculate the rent. And I know, and then based on the prices, I could just ask Victor, hey, Victor, so what's your most popular cup of coffee here? Oh, the $5 latte. Okay, so I know based on just numbers and statistics, that's about $100, maybe 100 customers a week, $6,000 to $8,000. Now, last semester, I had a student that works for Tierra Mia, and which is the coffee shop. So she confirmed it. She says that they make anywhere about $2,000 to $3,000 a day. So, and on slow days, it's like 2,000. On a good day, it's like 4 to 5,000. Maybe 6 to 8, roughly, depending on a good day. So that's $2,000 minimum on a slow day that they're making per day on coffee, right? And so the coffee business is a good business, if you really think about it, right? And you're walking in, you're charging $23 an hour for your job, for doing a logo. No. You should be charging the percentage fee of that work that you're doing, okay? In other words, you should be charging a 10 to 20% design fee for the total value of what Victor's worth. In other words, you charge a percentage of the business worth, not what you're worth. Is this making sense? So if Victor's worth $8,000, you charge 10 to 20% of the $8,000 or $10,000. Does that make sense? You charge the percentage of what the client is worth. That's how you make money in this, people. That is called a value-based price, and it's the way business is done. This is how clients in major corporations do it. This is how big studios do it. They calculate based on what the value and client is worth. And go and look up any corporate video, okay? I can give you a corporate video of Steve Jobs, and back in the 90s, who said that, I spent $100,000 on a logo because if Apple was redesigning a logo as big as they are, they would charge them millions of dollars. Steve Jobs confirmed in an interview saying, the bigger the company, the bigger the price, because people price the value of your worth, your company, not what I'm worth. Does that make sense? So you never charge off of that. You may feel like you're worth $20, but you gotta get past that, people. Does that make sense? You gotta break through the I don't think I deserve this part, because you do deserve it. You just need to push through it. And you gotta basically do it in little increments, okay? I'm not saying do it tomorrow, unless you're crazy and you wanna go for it and just have if you're feeling really good and the relationship is great and and the client is amazing, go for it, right? But these things happen in increments, right? So maybe instead of 10, you do a 5% fee, right? And then you do that a couple of times, 5% out of 8,000, and see what Victor says, right? And so, 800? Okay. Then you get more confident and you go up to 10%, and you do 10% for the next client, and then you go to 12 and then 14. Does this make sense? So you can go up in increments. I'm not saying to do it tomorrow, right? Because I don't want to, discourage anybody, but you want to work it up into increments so that you can build the confidence to go up higher. But start with percentages. Do not start with hours. Okay. The value-based price would say $1,200 instead of the $414 or $500 that you just calculated at $23 an hour. So can you imagine? That's like a 50% markup right there, right? That is night and day numbers, right? And when you're young, $1,200 is a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. And so wouldn't it be great if you started off making anywhere upwards of $1,000 for a project and go in that direction? But people always ask, hey, but I'm not worth that. I don't have that experience. And my answer is, you're right, but that's why you're taking this class, but that doesn't change the value of the client, right? Like their value is still the same, right? But it's how you value yourself that puts out that number, you know? And think about this for a minute. If you were Victor, would $1,200 be a lot of money or a little money? I mean, depending on Victor, right? Like if I know Victor's a value buyer and he's like, hey, Starbucks is around the corner. I'm in a rush. I want something that looks beautiful. I heard great things. I saw your work. Victor's telling you he's a value buyer. He is setting you up for success. Does that make sense? He is praising you for your work. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Man, I saw it. It looks great. That's awesome. I really need this. Okay, great. So let's talk about this, right? And that leads to like number 2, which is talk like a doctor, ask the why questions, okay? Let me pause it here. I think we're gonna pause that there, okay? And we'll talk about how to do the negotiation part, and I'll show you a couple of samples and we'll get into that for the second half, okay? But is this making sense for everybody? Is this helping somebody out? If it is, you can give me a thumbs up emoji. I so wish that my professors kind of put this out there, right? And they did, a couple of them did, but I think this would have been beneficial if I got this when I was younger, like starting out, year 1, first semester, right? Because when I started hearing about this, it wasn't until my junior, senior year, and then I didn't have enough time to experiment. So I would hope that the earlier I catch you talking about this, you have 4 years or more, for those of us going for a bachelor's, to test these numbers out. Does that make sense? So I actually believe that an early exposure can give you an opportunity to do small increment percentages throughout your 4 years or however many years of college you go through this, right? That strategically, that makes more sense, right? Versus like, oh my gosh, I'm a junior, I'm a senior, and I think it's gonna take me 5 or 6 years just to work up to these numbers, and I'm already paying for a rent, for an apartment, right? Do you see how that kind of works there? So I'm trying to work the percentages and try to work off compound raising interest with you guys by starting early. So I'm trying to compound your interest in these fields. Okay, let's take a break, okay? And then when we get back, we're gonna talk about 2 and 3. We're gonna do some simulations, some negotiations. I'm gonna demo it, and it'll take us right until 9:30. So let's take about a quick 5-minute break. So we'll be back at about 8:16, okay guys? And then we'll come back. I have some water ready to go because we will be chatting away. All right, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Zoom. Okay. So before we continue, do we have any questions so far? Just about anything we've kind of picked up on, okay? No question is too small, too little, but before we kind of go through the demo, but any questions up to this point, you can type it in the chat. Even during the conversation, I can get to it. Feel free, okay? We'll kind of cover it, but I just want to make sure that it's anything or comments, you feel free to do that as well. I'm curious to know if anyone's ever had a talk like this or had any type of information like this at any point, like if you have heard anything like similar to this, whether in college or in high school. Maybe you can give me like a thumbs up emoji on there. Okay. All right. So it's like the first time. Well, that's good. Well, I'll definitely give you some resources on how to build that up, but we'll continue. There's a lot of resources on this topic. Let's just say that, okay? And I'm going to give you access to all these things that I highly recommend. Okay, so let's go to that, and then I'll give you those resources towards the end. Now, we just said, right? First thing we do as designers, number 1, price the client. You can find out a lot about a person, their company, and their business if you see the number of employees, where their business or location is. All this stuff is easily Google searchable, right? So you can search for these things, okay? We do go over the person that has the home business, but most of the time, if they have a brick and mortar restaurant, coffee shop, you can pretty much find out right away. I've heard for businesses that are not restaurants, that if they, let's say it's like a t-shirt manufacturing business or a t-shirt business, and they call you for a logo, then if they have employees, count the number of employees and then work up your calculation from there. So you can actually find out how much an employer is paying the employees by just looking at how many employees they have. Does that make sense? So everything is figure outable, and you can find this stuff online. Okay. So you know really quick how much somebody is worth based on employees, location, and basically the pricing of their products. So those are a couple of quick tips. Okay. Once you figure out these numbers, you're charging a percentage. We said that you're going to do a percentage, which is anywhere between 10 to 20%, right? And based on that rough estimate of the total cost or total amount of money that person is potentially making in a month or even in a year, if you know this is like a long-term project. And then we talk like a doctor, okay? Ask why are we doing this, okay? And then we do something called a disengagement 3 times, okay? And we will sell by closing. Let me show you a video of this being put at play. Now, I love the future. It is an amazing YouTube channel. I kind of showed you a little bit during the beginning of class, but let's take a look at how Chris Do breaks this down, because I think this is probably one of the best examples on how to like talk and price out a client using this method. So let me go ahead and push play here, and we will take a look at this a little bit more closely. Okay, here we go.
Stop selling, start closing. This is the idea of the whisper versus the scream. When you whisper, people lean in, and when you scream, people tend to pull back. We're very accustomed to being sold to, so our defense goes up really fast. When you say it, you're selling. This is good, this is great, you need this. When they say it, you're closing. This is the whisper. A good salesperson first seeks to understand the true nature of a customer's problem, and only then offers a solution. This is the difference. I do not go into a room assuming I have something that you need. I want to understand what the problem is so that you can understand that. Then and only then can I provide something of value to you. Okay, guys, so what do I really mean when I say, when we say it, we're selling, and when they say it, we're closing? What are some examples of how to whisper in the buy-sell cycle with a client? Well, the first thing you should do is not make it about you. Make it about the client. Ask them questions about what kind of challenges they're trying to solve. What kind of goals are they trying to hit? Learn about their problems. And what you're doing is when you're asking questions, you allow them to kind of look inward and figure out what's going on. The thing that you want to do is stay in the diagnostic phase for as long as possible. If you go to see a doctor and they're quick to prescribe a solution for you, take 2 pills and call me in the morning, but you haven't had a chance to even tell the doctor what the symptoms are. Now imagine a whole different scenario where the doctor spends all the time talking to you about stress that's in your life, your diet, your family history, things that are happening at work, personal stuff, and they're really getting to understand who you are and what makes you unique. And then they say, you know what, I was going to prescribe 2 pills, but instead, I really think you need to take 3 days off of work and do some self-reflection. And that's the root cause of the problem. Now the solution, the prescription, if you will, has real meaning to you because the doctor spent time to learn about you. So this is what we want to do in consultative selling. We want to ask lots of questions. So even when the client comes to you and says, I need a new website, or our branding doesn't look good, that's not enough for you to go off and do your job. You should say, wait a minute, let me try to understand what's driving the decision to make something new. Why do you need a new website? Well, our sales are down, or we're not doing a great job of delivering a great customer experience. And then if you keep asking why and you keep digging deeper and deeper, you're going to start to find out perhaps the solution isn't what they came in for, but it's something totally different. Another way of whispering is to act and talk as if you don't need the work. Don't show up with an agenda, show up empty. Be water, as they say with Bruce Lee, just take whatever form the conversation goes in. I'm not here to sell, I'm not here to persuade. All I want to do is advise you to the best of my ability to help you. That's another great way to listen. And what Blair Enns says is to try to kill the engagement 3 times. By saying, this might not be a good fit for me, the budget might not be right, and I'm not sure my schedule can accommodate what we're talking about. Each time, you're subconsciously telling the client, I don't need the work, let me see if I can help. And that's it. When you give up control, that is when you gain it. When you stop trying to be smart is when you're smart. And when you stop selling, you close. You guys know if you've done it correctly when you start to hear the words that you want to say coming out of their lips. So when they say, Chris, we don't need a website, we need to rethink our whole communication platform, or we need to design a different customer service experience, can you please help us? That is them saying it, and now you're not selling, you are closing.
All right. So that's Chris Doe from the future, and I highly recommend that channel, which I'll give you guys there. But that's in a nutshell what it is, right? Amazing channel and really good stuff, and I'll share that with you. But they have like almost 2 million subscribers, and they specifically talk about design, graphic design, all things related to design. And if you check out this channel, you will get you'll probably be binge watching for up to a year. And they talk about a lot of examples, a lot of different playlists, things of that sort. I don't get anything for this. Basically, the backstory is that Chris Doe was teaching at Art Center College of Art and Design, and that's about $250,000 education in design. And he had like a handful of students, and his wife says, I think you're kind of wasting your time and you could do so much more. And he left it and to start up a YouTube channel. And 5 years later, he's become very successful at it, making more he ever did at this teaching job at Art Center. So he's basically teaching you what he taught at Art Center, which I can verify for, I can vouch, and throwing it out there on the internet for free. And so I applaud the guy, and it is an amazing channel, and definitely check it out. So I'll have that placed in there so you can check it out. Okay. Yes, we'll get into that a little bit too, because the closing is a little bit like reverse psychology, and we're going to kind of break into that and see what that looks like actually right now. So because we will talk about that process, but we want to talk like a doctor, ask the why questions, talk about that process when we're done, and let's jump in and go for it. Okay. So let's talk about this sheet, the value-based pricing negotiation sheet. And this is how we're going to do this exercise. Okay, so we can kind of practice a little bit. So we'll have some time to talk about it. So in this exercise, there's two parts to this exercise. One part of this exercise is literally doing some calculations. So the activity is a two-parter, right? So the activity that's on this week's exercise is actually the calculations, and you're actually going to do those calculations for next class session. So we'll do it together as a class, okay? And this is the logistics, the numbers and crunching. And basically, like, number one is how to evaluate. So this is the number one part, okay? But we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight, and we're actually going to put down and we're going to do the negotiation portion of it, okay? So let's talk about this sheet, okay? I'm going to give you a script in a couple of seconds. And this script is going to be everyone's practice sheet, okay? You're gonna go through the script and practice amongst each other, okay? But the game plays like this. One person plays the coffee shop owner, the other person plays the designer, okay? And already somebody just left the room. It tells me when people leave. So one person plays the coffee shop owner, the other person plays the designer, okay? And so we're gonna kind of break that down first. Now you get to decide, whoever wants to be coffee shop owner, whoever gets to be a designer. I would hope it would be half and half. So we'll break it up a little bit evenly, or I can possibly assign you guys. You know, as a matter of fact, you know what? I'll assign it instead. We'll go that route. So I'll kind of randomly pick people that'll be coffee shop owners and people that'll be graphic designers, okay? And we'll just do kind of like a random split down the middle because we have about 20. So that'll be 10 and 10, and we'll do a random breakout, okay? And if you're the coffee shop owner, okay, then you're gonna ask yourself, am I a price buyer, indecisive buyer, know-it-all, or a value buyer, okay? So you're gonna, you don't have to be Victor unless you want to pretend you're Victor. You're basically gonna be a coffee shop owner like Victor that owns this space. So you have a beautiful coffee shop, Starbucks showed up, and now you're in a little bit of a situation and you need to figure it out. Based on who you are, if you're a price buyer, indecisive buyer, know-it-all, lean into that. So you'll use your buying identity as sort of the basis. Does that make sense? So you're going to be like James, the price buyer, right? You're gonna play that role. Okay, you can pretend to be Victor, or you could just be James, who happens to own a coffee shop. Okay, so you're gonna be that person yourself. Okay, now when you go through the script, I did include a couple of things. One buyer, one bonus tip there. I did include in the sheet some additional information on what you can say like afterwards, right? But I will say that some of the things that businesses suffer, the most common small business challenges are, I mentioned in the sheet, are things like funding, like having money. Some people, some businesses don't have money or don't budget money for marketing. They just think it's just people will magically appear, right? You do have to get a little bit of marketing done. Social media does take time. So you can make ads for that. So they never think about that. Some small businesses or businesses don't think about standing out. They just think that just because they're in the game that's enough, when they don't realize that they have to be different from their customers or competition, like the coffee shop. They don't know how to find customers. They don't know how to get found by their customers. They don't know how to keep their customers. They don't know how to grow a business. Sometimes they're so successful that they don't know how to scale up, and they don't know how to manage the money or the business or the orders or the logistics. And sometimes, yes, they do too much without hiring employees, and they burn out. So I've seen these types, all types, and most of the time when they come to you, they're suffering from something in their business. Okay, so think of these as symptoms. Okay, that when they walk in, you know that they have some type of symptom related to these things. Okay, so think of this as like, well, if people are not sleeping, these are the most common things people are doing that are not making them sleep. Working too much, eating too much fatty foods, staying out late, right? Like we know the usual suspects, right? These are the usual suspects when it comes to businesses. So I included that in the sheet for reference. But you don't need to use that, but it's helpful for those that are playing coffee shop owner. Okay. So we're going to use that sheet, and I'm going to share this with you. But before I do that, well, actually, let me share it, but we're going to do a demonstration. And I'm going to play the graphic designer. Okay. Any takers? Does anyone want to, you don't have to turn on your camera per se. We could, we can hear you if you want to, but does anyone want to play the coffee shop owner? And I will play the graphic designer. Okay, James, I see your hand waving over there. All right, James, so you're going to play the coffee shop owner, right? Okay. Right, very cool. Now, so you know who you are. You have your coffee shop, beautiful shop, everything's there. Okay. Okay. And we're going to do a role play, and we're going to role play this out. And I'm going to copy the link, and I'm going to put this in the chat so that everyone can kind of track along. Okay. So that you can participate in this. Okay. And this is Google Doc and editing. Okay. I'll just open it up so you can see it, and then you can do a file copy, copy the file. So you can see it, but you can make a copy for yourself in a couple of seconds, but you just follow along for right now so that we can see it. Okay. So if you notice down the list here, well, I'm going to role play, and then I'll describe it a little bit later. Okay. Okay. So James, this is not for you. This is, you're going to basically just go off the fly, off the cuff. And then I'm going to go, and then everyone's going to kind of follow me via the script and see how I kind of deliver. Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, so James, are you James, the coffee shop owner?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. What's the name of your coffee shop?
You're called Wild Blends.
Wild Blends. All right, cool. I like that. All right, so we'll set up the scenario. You called me. All right, and about your coffee shop. You said, you found me online, let's say, and we'll just pretend this is a Zoom call. Okay, so we'll call it this a Zoom call that we'll set up, okay? And we're just gonna pretend it's you and me and nobody else is watching us in this Zoom call, okay? All right, I'm gonna stop the share, and then but people can kind of follow along. Does everyone can everyone follow along on their own screen, or no? You know what? I'll just follow along, and then we'll go like this way, and then I'll use the sheet there as kind of like a demo. So we'll see how that goes. All right, very cool. All right, so James, let's go ahead and we'll jump in, and here we go. And 3, 2, 1, action.
All right. So it's nice to meet you, Miguel. Oh, I heard you're a graphic designer from a friend of mine who said who's done work for you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, James. Thank you so much for calling me. I appreciate it. Yeah, we have mutual friends, and yeah, they just mentioned to me that they just wanted to that you were interested, that you were looking to do some design work. So yeah, let's let's talk about it. I have my coffee here. It tastes great, by the way. So thank you for offering. I appreciate it. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about it because I know your time is valuable, and I just want to kind of understand some of your challenges and some of your needs. So can you just kind of share with me a little bit about your company and why you feel like this is the time to talk to me or contact me?
Yeah. So we're basically thinking of upgrading our stuff. We have recently got an increasing number of sales, and mostly our clients are now wanting something more dynamic to appeal to them. Since our current logo is just very simple, and some people want us to see a new change, and because we're like opening up more, we got recently it passed like an increase of 1,000 extra customers a day, and that number is slowly rising even more with an expected of about like 5,000 by the end of this month.
So, and sorry to interrupt. So you're seeing a lot of customers per day. That sounds like you're doing really well in business.
Yes.
Why? Why would you need to do a logo if business is going like really, really well right now? I think our friend said that there was a coffee shop, or I think someone had mentioned there was like a new Starbucks around the corner, and that you wanted to talk to me about that. Am I in the right place? Am I wrong there?
Yeah, you're right because the Starbucks is actually because the Starbucks slowly opening up. We're worried about our business going out, and because Starbucks has been like a big name in the coffee industry already, I'm starting to worry about us losing potential customers. And when we're just slowly rising up, as I said, we are expecting about like to get to 5,000 by the end of the month on average, but due to how a Starbucks opening up, that might be dripping down a bit. And because our our brand Wild Blends is so a he's just coming out of the woodworks, we're worried about that Starbucks opening up is just going to affect our business.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that even though Starbucks is open, your business is doing good, it might not be as good compared to them. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, yes, that is correct.
Okay. You have a big company opening up around the corner. You're good, you're doing really well. I'm a relatively small business myself. Why do you feel like I'm the person that you want to contact? Why not just go with an online service, or why not just do like 99 designs and just charge and pay $100 for a logo and call it a day? Why would you go with me instead of those cheaper alternatives?
The reason I actually wanted to get in contact with you is because I heard from that friend of mine saying that you actually have worked with bigger companies before, and I wanted to and because you worked with these bigger companies before, I would think that maybe you actually would be fitting into the job more, since I think you would know a little bit more than what I would randomly find on the internet or just randomly searching around. Because your resume also has been much bigger from what I've seen and what your friend has shown me on what you've done.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we do pride ourselves on our clients, and we do like having really good relationships with our clients. I think we kind of bring a small relationship, sort of a persona to big business interactions. Our clients appreciate it. We really get to understand the needs of our client that way. So, so for us, smaller is better. But that doesn't necessarily mean that smaller is cheaper. So typically, I would always like to work with my clients and tell them like, hey, even though we're smaller, our fees are a bit high, and we always like to recommend other people before hiring us, just to help them save money, because we care about our clients. And even if you do or don't go with us, we want to make sure that we at least give you the options on where you can possibly save money on making this exchange, right? So why not just hire, wouldn't you want to go with maybe another agency or startup, or maybe even like a local college? Man, there's like a really awesome teacher that's teaching courses. Maybe you can get a student on board. Maybe you can work with a bigger team and then get more options that way. And I heard they charge like $20 an hour, so you might save more money that way. But why not just go with them? Why don't you do better with working with something like that?
It's because your current reputation on how you actually have presented with all the amazing projects you've done in the past. I actually am more impressed with them, and I definitely want to put my trust into someone who has actually built up a good resume with all these past clients. It makes, and I feel like I can have the money to splurge onto helping, like, how should I say put this? But I had the money to spend to help my company out more, and just would hire anyone who can help me out with this company build and building up a new better brand, and also just improving our company in general.
Okay. Well, before we talk about numbers and everything, I like to just understand the clients. I really want to get a feel for who I'm working with, because we really want to understand first, like, what the challenges are before we invest. Because quite honestly, we don't take every project. We want to know that we're capable, and we want to know that we can deliver, and we are very selective on the clients that we work with. So it's great that you like our work. I really am honored that you took a chance to look at our resume. But let me just kind of understand this holistically first. Like, what is the best case scenario, would you say, for this project? Like let's say we fast forward and everything's done with this project. What's going to make you happy after we're done? Like, what is the final outcome towards this entire project? Like, you see what happening?
I would honestly be seeing that the company does extremely well. We would also get back into contact with you, and also recommend you to other people who would also want to get in contact with your work. We want to build the brand up more, and also help build your resume up more. As we have seen already with how much you have been doing, and we want to make it, and we also want to give you a high expectation. Like, we want to make say you have like, you are doing much, you're really good, and we can have some good expectations from you if we were to recommend you from anyone.
Okay,
Anyone.
so just so I can recap, right? You said you want when the company does well. Now, would you say well is, I heard 5,000 customers that you're getting. Uh, is it per day, per week? Is it that number? Is it higher or more than 5,000? Is there a specific number, would you say, that would be considered well, or perhaps a number? But how would you want, like, how many number of customers would you say you want? Like, what would well look like, so that you're not afraid of Starbucks taking a portion of your business as well? What would you think that would be?
I would say about 4,000, on an average. If it goes a little bit higher than him, like that, I would be extreme more than satisfied.
Now, is that 4,000 a day, 4,000 a week? What exactly is considered a 4,000 what? 4,000 online exchanges, 4,000 pre-orders, 4,000 cups of coffee that come through? Like, what exactly is 4,000 look like specifically? $4,000 a day?
like
Just
four.
kind of, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it so I know exactly what the final outcome is.
All right, yeah. So I'm thinking about like 4,000 like purchases a day. Just wanna
Okay,
say.
so 4,000 purchases a day for coffee. Now, and that's everything on your menu, right?
That's not what we do. More than just simply coffee, we offer also some frappuccinos and also like a simple breakfast sandwich. I guess you could say that.
Okay, so then, so we have all that. So right now, if you're having 5,000, then is that 5,000 per week that you're getting right now that you want and that you would like to turn into 4,000 per day? In other words, are you getting 1,000 customers a week and you want to see a 400% increase in your sales by the time our exchange is done?
Um, around that number, yes.
Okay, so right now, we're looking at about 1,000 purchases a day is what you're calculating right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and how much is your average cup of coffee, if you don't mind me asking?
Our average cup of coffee usually costs us around $6. There's a $6.99.
Okay, so we're looking at about $6 for a cup of coffee there. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, and so at the end of the day, so what we're looking at, for what I'm hearing, just so as a recap, is that Wild Blends is doing really, really well, and even though Wild Blends is doing really well, we still have a dangerous competitor nearby, which is Starbucks. And Starbucks, which is a corporation, does a significantly larger number of coffee than Wild Blends does. And now Wild Blends is a great name. It sounds like you're seeing some potential growth, and quite frankly, you're making a killing with these coffees per day. So that's great. So as a design firm, obviously we want to make sure that we understand the challenges, know that we can go through this. But based on your needs and challenges, I could say pretty confidently that if we do something like this particular project, it could run you somewhere around, I would say, maybe $50,000 to do this particular project. Okay, and that's only one price for the whole project.
So so your asking price is 50,000, correct?
Yes, it's one price. Okay, and basically, when you get that, you will work with us through the entire exchange. We will walk with you. We will go through the ins and outs. We will look at your entire infrastructure and pretty much analyze it from top to bottom. We want to see what the brand does, not only from like one exterior standpoint, but through interaction, through web, through different types of case studies. And we also want you to have the ability to scale, and that you're ready to scale when you're ready to get to growth, right? The world's changing, right? A lot of people are ordering food online and they're doing pre-orders through mobile apps. And not too many coffee shops are doing the things that Starbucks is doing. We feel very confident that we can make a mobile system for you. In addition to that, in fact, I believe that you might need more of an infrastructure, a web presence, and a web strategy. Then you do a logo on top of that so that you're fully prepared for the 21st century. I think this project would tailor to about 50,000, and we would typically work on a 50% down payment. Okay, we will work on a contract, and we will send that out to you. And obviously, if you're comfortable with that, we can move forward. But if you need time, I totally agree with that, and that's totally fine.
So all this is for a web design, for a website, an app, and then some logo changes, as well as helping create for some menus. You're going to charge it. The total asking price is around 50,000, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
I'm willing to pay a little bit more. How about 55,000? If that's good, sounds good with you.
As much as I appreciate that, I think 50 will work for us. So I appreciate that, with the parameters that we set in place. So we don't want to add more work to it for a higher price. We're just going to stick to that. Okay.
All right.
Does
then.
this sound like this is something that you might want to move forward with?
Yes, I am. Well, yes, I do want to move forward with this, and I'm ready to hire.
All right, perfect. All right, great, James. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and send you a contract and later this afternoon before we leave, and then we'll move forward from there. Okay. So we look forward to working with you, and I look forward to bringing my team into this journey with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you. So,
Dean. There you go. All right, good job, James. All right. So well done. So how did that feel, James? How did that work?
it definitely felt like it worked really well. Even like even though like I'm like such an introvert that it was why I kept stuttering so much. I've been trying to think off the top of my head for some of the stuff as well for it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know what? It takes some practice, so that's for sure one part of it. But tell me a little bit of how this felt. Like, what were some things that stood out to you in this interaction? And for the rest of the class, like, what stood out to you in this interaction? Now I went through the script, right? But notice that I didn't go word for word. I brought it into my conversation style. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
I brought that into the mix. So what are some things that you noticed through this interaction, right? Did I,
Yeah.
did I stay in one area? Did I, what did you notice overall? I was taking
But
notes myself while I was
yes.
writing this, so I could capture every detail that stood out. And I caught some things, right? Like James didn't say what well meant, and I held him accountable, right? I was like, no, give me a number. What does well mean? Like, what number of customers does well calculate to? Okay, so that's
Yeah,
one
because
thing.
like I didn't mention that, and then like I realized, oh right, he's probably not going to understand. So then I would actually have to be more clear. Like I had to clarify a little bit more on that, because otherwise they're not going to understand like what I'm really wanting in this entire time.
Yeah,
And so
and talking about numbers is so uncomfortable to begin with that like that's like it's not look, I've been doing this for a long time. Like talking about money is not easy. Like it is always an uncomfortable subject. Okay. I don't think I've met like anyone that is comfortable about talking about money is probably crazy at that point, right? Or just doesn't care, right? But most of the time, right? There's a little bit of discomfort, right? I mean, unless you're ultra confident, you've made lots of money. I'll say that, right? You're either like
yeah,
crazy, like overconfident, or just like unrealistic, I think. And those people do exist, right? They'll throw crazy numbers and they don't care because they have a boatload of cash, whether they have it or they're just big risk takers. But most people are somewhere in the middle where they're like, man, this is an awkward conversation, like, and I'll throw it out there. Okay. So just did anyone else catch anything in this conversation that you might want to type it in? Share in the chat. Like, what did you notice? What James do? Maybe what did you notice I do? Like, what stood out to you? Like, what are some highlights, some things that you guys discovered? Go ahead and type it in the chat, and we'll kind of cover some of the most common like things you're finding. But what did you see? What did you notice? Like, what stood out to you? Okay. Give you guys a couple seconds there.
well, I do want to mention one thing is that the one thing that caught me off guard the most was you, like, because I'm asking you, and then you're questioning me now. Like, you're starting to make me second guess myself if I really did hire the right person for the job, is what it was. It felt like that's
Yeah.
what it really did feel like.
So that's called that's disengagement, right? Like it's kind of like a mental jujitsu or Jedi mind business trick. It is somewhat reverse psychology. So James brought up a really good point. Okay, and while you're typing, let's confront that. Questions 1 through 6 is all about why you picked me, right? Now I don't say why. Well, that's the first one, right? But I asked 3 different ways of why you picking me. Number 1, why me? Why now? Why this? Oh, I wrote down because you work with big companies. Okay, why not just find the cheaper option? Oh no, because you have amazing product based on your past. Okay, well, why would you hire with the most expensive one? We're small, but we're expensive, so we don't charge cheap. Well, you have a great resume. What James is doing is he's telling me and telling himself why he should hire me. Does that make sense? So he's actually doing the selling for himself. I just use reverse psychology for him to tell me why it was. I asked those open-ended questions so that he could tell me, but really he's telling himself and convincing himself why I'm the perfect choice and telling me at the same time. Does that make sense? So he's literally telling me and reinforcing the reason, and I don't have to do anything but just reinforce it for him. Well, thank you. We have worked with great clients. It's better than me trying to sell him all these options and see what hits, right? I just come in open and I just ask them those questions, and they bring me into the conversation. Does that make sense? So this works really well for interviews sometimes, right? If you're doing an interview for a job and they ask questions, it's like, oh yeah, so I'm just curious, like, what is it about, my resume that you found interesting? Well, we think it's great, you have great experience and this and that and this and this and that. Now they're basically convincing themselves why they should hire me, right? Does that make sense? So he's giving that away. So I try to do that 3 times. That's 3 times of disengagement. And so what you're basically saying is, like, explain to me why you shouldn't leave, right? And then he's explained it. Then from there, I say, oh, okay, well then, now that you've told me reasons why you're telling yourself why you should hire me, now tell me what your outcome is, so I know the outcome specifically. And he's like, oh, well, here's specifically what we want. Okay, so now you told yourself why you should hire me. Now you're telling me what you want from the project. And now I'm going to tell you how much I want from you. And then there's that awkward pause. And that awkward pause is perfect. You want that, right? You want them to basically be like, no, say something, right? Okay, maybe not, or that's too expensive, or like you want to hold, right? Because silence is the most powerful thing you can do in that situation. It's uncomfortable, don't get me wrong, right? And I think the worry is that you're going to lose the client, right? But this is what I would argue, okay? You never gain them if they say no. Does that make sense? So let's just say James said, no, I don't want, you're too expensive. Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate it. It's not your loss, okay? Whether you said yes or no, you still won, because they said no and you saved yourself some pain and going through that process, right? But you never had the customer to begin with, right? The only way you lost it is if they signed the contract and basically like didn't pay you the other 50%, right? You never lost, you never gained. They were never yours to begin with. So a lot of students feel like, hey man, I'm going to lose the client. Well, you never had them to begin with. It's just a conversation. Who said they were going to give you the job? They're just there to talk. You didn't gain or lose anything, right? So you still win. If they said no, you still win, because you saved yourself a lot of pain and pressure. And don't get me wrong, you're not charging a number because it's ridiculous. I think $50,000 to build a web presence and logo is very reasonable, right? If not, it's like for a small team to do that for 50K, like that's a good price, right? But but if they said no to that, then I would be like, well, dude, like, then it's not a win for anybody. I'm not going to win. You're not going to win. So I win at the end of the day because we had this conversation to begin with. Does that make sense? So you have to tell yourself that you never had the customer. Oh, I lost the job. They never said yes. They never gave you money. So you never lost it. Okay. Let's see. Anybody write in the chat and things like that. So he's the one that ends up selling to himself. Yes. So that is correct, Sylvia. And then you ask a lot of open-ended questions for him to answer. So it's like a doctor. They're telling you what it is. I've done this with a lot of people. And at the end of the day, you'll be surprised how many people don't know their strategy or what they're doing. Okay. And they even tell you what their budget is. And they say, oh no, I probably, we're kind of looking at, you'll be surprised. An open-ended question could could tell you very quickly if they're spending money or not. And it saved me a lot of pain and discomfort, right? I had a person that wanted to do a blog. I said, hey, so why do you want to go with me? Why not just go to that one website for $100? why would you go with the, with the expensive, one-on-one guy? He's like, oh yeah, we're kind of looking at him, and we're kind of playing around. I just wanted to see what your thoughts are. And then that was it. He said, okay, let me think about it. I'll call you back. He never called me back, but I won, right? I never said yes. And I never, and we never had an uncomfortable conversation about money. So in the end, it was a wall of protection, I guess you can say, how would you do this if you do not really have much on your portfolio? That is a really good question. If you don't have much on your portfolio, then basically you should have something, right? Like a portfolio doesn't mean a book or a website. It could be an Instagram page. It could be a TikTok, right? It could be a social media presence, right? Like we've seen designers that put their work on Instagram and social media, right? So a portfolio could be as simple as social media, and you could be creating projects and sharing your process, and people get interested, and you're bringing them along in the journey. So I guess the answer is, how do you, if you don't really have much on your portfolio, then show them a lot of your process. Show them how you think. Show them a lot about how you look at design. Like, draw the logos, deconstruct it, redesign it, right? Create projects, create scenarios, take this project and build and put it on social media. You'll be surprised how many people will be like, hey, I like the way you did that. Could you do that for my company, even though that was a project? Does that make sense? So don't think of it as a portfolio of finished work, as it is a showcase of your thoughts in real time, solving the project. Does that make sense? It's a very different way of looking at it. You want to give people, show them the process in real time. Okay. So whether it's live talking about it, or you're doing a live session and you show your computer screen and you're showing your sketches, it's like today people want authentic, and the more authentic you are in your process and upfront you are, the more people want to see, well, can you do that process for me? So it's more like real-time live streaming of your process of projects that turn into the final product. So now portfolios are becoming more about the real-time problem solving / final product. So now you can actually turn your projects, fake or real, into actual portfolio projects. So you don't have to wait till you're done. You can actually do this project. Let's say you do like one of our projects in class. You can put that on social media and promote that, and then show the final product, and boom, you got a portfolio that you're building. Does that make sense? So hopefully, that makes sense. It's mostly just work you've ever done in the field. Yeah, it's a very different way of processing and showcasing your work, if that makes sense. So it's very much there. And we have a little 4-year-old guest coming in. You okay, mijo?
Yeah, I saw the spider.
You saw a spider?
Yeah, in a bathroom.
Oh, okay. Did mommy get it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank mommy in a little bit. Okay. Spiders, you never know. Okay. We're all there. Okay. So yeah, so does that help a little bit, guys? Hopefully that answers those questions. So it's a lot more about how you solved it than it is what you solved. People want to know how you solve things. And so if you can bring them in on that process, all the more power to you. Okay. Okay. Oh my gosh, I got 20 minutes. Okay. Yeah, no one likes spiders. Okay, so let's kind of break this down. I already know we're not gonna have enough time. So why don't we hold off the actual negotiation for Thursday, first thing. Is that gonna work for everybody? So you have a little bit of time to practice. Is that gonna help everybody out? Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we understand the roots, the nuts and the bolts of this thing, right? The script is the practical. This is the stuff you want to like played out, okay? How it works, how it all kind of flows at the end of the day. On Thursday, what's going to happen is that, I'll randomly put you in, right? I'm going to select, coffee drinkers or coffee owners and designers. We're going to put you guys in separate rooms. I'm going to talk to you guys individually, and then we're going to bring you into breakout rooms, and then you're going to negotiate for about 5 minutes and kind of pull something similar, okay? Some of you are going to do really well. Some of you guys are not going to know what to say. Some of you guys are going to like stutter. Doesn't matter, as long as you get a little bit of practice and do what I call deal or no deal, okay? If you make a deal, have a number. If you don't have a deal, then just say no deal. And guys, that's another thing too. If you don't have a deal, that's just as good as making a deal. Because to me, no deal means that you didn't like the conversation. They're not a good fit as a client. They're too pushy, they're too this, they're too that, or something, or they're not clear enough. It could be those things. So you got to take those things into account. Okay. So sometimes no deal means I cannot see myself working with this person, and I'm just going to save myself a little bit of time. Does that make sense? Okay. So no deal is just as successful as making a deal, because at the end of the day, you've protected yourself from a bad engagement. Okay. So that's how I look at those type of no deals more specifically. Okay. So so we have that. We'll do the exercise, which is value-based pricing. This is basically like running the numbers again. So we'll do this together, right? I'm actually going to give you also, we'll do this in class also on Thursday, where we take a home business and try to calculate the home business. Because there's always that question, oh, hey, professor, that's cool, great, right? But what if this person is working from home during a pandemic and I don't know, da, 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 da. Well, there's some ways you can actually calculate through their social media, their numbers. So we're actually going to take a real online fitness. Joy's a friend of mine. And so she has her own online business. I don't know her actual numbers today, but this is what I guesstimated, and I'm pretty sure I was close, right? So we're going to actually pretend on Thursday that her Instagram is the place of business. And there's actually numbers that we can sort of guesstimate for social media called conversion rates. And we can actually calculate customers that convert based on the current conversion rates on social media. Okay. So there are some numbers that we can refer to. They're not rents, as there are more like conversions, which are people that convert to buy something from the Instagram influencer. Does that make sense? So if you have an Instagram, Thursday is going to be really good for you guys, because then you'll understand how to convert your followers into businesses and have a realistic number to back it up. Okay. And how you can kind of calculate that and funnel them into your direction. Okay. So I'm excited for the Instagram businesses that are out there. You're going to get a lot of value on Thursday. Okay. So you have your documents. We'll do that on Thursday. And then on Thursday, we're going to look at the contracts. So, hey, professor, when it's done, what do I do after that? I give you a copy of the contract, which is also on Canvas, by the way. So all this is available starting now. If you need it, if you're going to make a contract tomorrow or tonight, you don't have to wait. You can start now. So I give you a copy of a contract that you can fill in the information. This is a legit contract that protects you in every way, shape, and form. That's also found on Canvas. You will get a copy of that. And then I'll make some recommendations on services and business where you can transfer money. No, it's not a complicated thing. Venmo. You can do transactions through Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. There's a lot of ways to do money transactions, and there's also some great invoice generators as well, where you can send proposals and create proposals. So we'll share that all to you. It is so much easier now to do money transactions in businesses today with electronic money. It is crazy. Okay. So it's a lot easier than it was when I was your age, because back then you had to wait for a check and you had to process the check, and it took 15 to 30 days to get your check. And then you had to wait till it cashed, and then all for $500. Are you kidding me? Like now it's like in 24 hours you get your money. You guys, I'm jealous of you guys. Canvas also has an invoice generator. So, hey, professor, how do I create a bill and bill them? It's all there for free. This is a free invoice generator. So you can punch in your numbers that we just talked about. And hey, professor, how about the website, The Future? Yeah, it's also on Canvas and the activity page. If you want to start watching things tonight, you can. I'll put it inside the chat. The Future is an amazing channel. I kid you not, you can go a year watching all the content. This guy has like 6 years of information, and he hasn't stopped since. And a lot of his teachings come from this channel. Okay, so this lesson is based on some of his lessons here. And if you want to learn more about it, I do give you the playlist, which is, I believe, value-based business on the list there, and it talks about it right down to female entrepreneurs, to project managers, to logos, to conferences, to building a brand, to making sales and business school for creatives. There's endless videos. So I highly recommend this for you guys. And actually, I sent it to Angel through direct. So I highly recommend it. If you're driving, listen to it on your way to work. Highly, highly recommend that. And then there's a great podcast from a few years back called Slate's Negotiation Academy, which is a deeper dive in on how to negotiate. And it actually looks at 10 different scenarios for negotiation. So let's say we talked about graphic design. Well, this podcast goes deeper. It talks about how to negotiate with jerks, how to negotiate and close deals, how to negotiate as a woman, how to haggle over real estate, how to negotiate with your kids, and how to negotiate your salary and raise it up. And this is based off actual research from the Columbia Business School, where a couple of podcasters took their class for a semester and turned the semester into 10 episodes of a podcast. And it is really great. It's about 15 minutes per episode, and it gives you the nuts and bolts. This is how you say it. This is who talks first. This is who grounds the number. This is what happens when the other person says this. It is primo stuff. So I highly recommend you take a listen to that, whether you're on campus, driving to work, walking to school, walking home, driving home. Listen to it. It's always good to listen at least once a year, these podcasts. And I always like to come back to it every now and again as well. Okay. Lots of value for you guys, but I believe highly in this stuff. And I think money is really important. So I talk about this early in the game, early in the semester, so that you guys can set the tone for your careers and your futures, and know what to charge, and know when you're being taken advantage of and when you're winning as a designer, as an entrepreneur. And if you're not even planning, last thing I'll say, if you're not even planning to have your own business, at least this will teach you how your bosses or future bosses are doing business. Does that make sense? So this is valuable just to know how these people are doing business. So if you work for a company and you see that they're not doing this, maybe that's a red flag that you should leave. If you're noticing that they are and they're not paying you enough, that's a red flag that you should be asking for more. So just knowing how people do business will help you better position yourself in understanding how you're treated in the business, whether you have your own or not. Does that make sense? So it's great to know how people do this stuff. And believe me, knowing how my former bosses were and how they negotiated, I could have easily negotiated higher wages and higher salaries. I just didn't know, because I was too afraid to ask, because I didn't know how. And I didn't know how the business and the nuts and bolts. This stuff will help you get and up your game and understand and have a little bit of a better point to persuade others and ultimately yourself, because you want to be a peacemaker, not a people pleaser. So make peace with your future self, and set those high prices. Okay. And we're going to do that on Thursday. Okay. Sound good? All right. All right, guys, I'm going to let you off about 15 minutes early tonight. Take a look at all this content, practice, and have some fun with it. And we will see you guys on Thursday, first thing, to do our demo and run into your negotiations. So I look forward to negotiating with you guys on Thursday. Okay.
Okay. I'll see you on Thursday.
We'll see you on Thursday. All right, guys, have a good night. And I hope you've had a fun evening.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I still need some help with the Adobe stuff.
Okay.
Like,
We'll get you in there, James. Let's go ahead and stop the recording.
also